Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I wanted to take some time on this video and get as real as I possibly can with y'all so you can be sure that you don't make some of the same mistakes that I have when it comes to everything involved with infinite banking. Understand that my focus as a coach and as a teacher and as a user of the infinite banking concept is to consume hours of information around this every single day so that I can constantly be growing my knowledge base and continue to pour into the people who are looking for good, reliable sources that they can trust. Honestly, I try to eat, sleep, and breathe infinite banking almost to a fault. There are definitely times where I should be focused on my family, but I can't lie, I'm focused on how I can help people better understand and implement this incredible concept in their lives. Believe me, it won't always be like that. But if we're being honest, whether I like it or not, that's the way it is right now. So if we end up working together, please know that I am doing everything I can to educate myself about the process of IBC, the nuances, the potential companies, whether they be direct or non-direct, that I believe might benefit you guys the most when it comes to building something generational for your family. You see, I'm not perfect, and I'm definitely not always right, but that's why I try to be open-minded and continue to learn and grow. I invite you guys to do the same with me. So, let's talk about what I've learned thus far and how I can help you hopefully not make the same mistakes that I have along the way. So the question that I get all the time is, and I get why people ask it, because the second you get an infinite banking style policy in place, you finally feel something that most people never feel with money: control. You've got liquidity, you've got control, you've got access. You can actually begin to move capital without begging a bank for permission, and that's exciting. So the question becomes, well, when should I start using my policy to invest, Shawn? And I'm going to say this up front. There isn't one blanket answer for everybody. I don't like lumping people together because your age, your cash flow, your discipline, your debt situation, your emergency fund, and your investing experience all change what the right move might be for you. But after doing this for years and watching how real people behave, especially in the first 12 months, there is a clear pattern that I've seen. And if I can save you from some of the mistakes that I made early on, then I'll have done my job. So if you're under 50 years old, my general thought is take a solid year. I'm talking one whole year, and capitalize the hell out of your policy. Not because you can't invest, not because investing is bad, but because this is a new system, and new systems require discipline before they allow leverage. What I've noticed is that most people are so anxious to utilize even a little leverage before they've even built the base. That, my friends, is backwards thinking. Think about it. The money you're funding into your policy monthly or annually was already being stored somewhere, right? For most people, it was probably sitting in a bank account, earning basically nothing, leaking value quietly, and honestly begging you to spend it. So when we start a policy, we're not doing something reckless. We're relocating capital into a place that does more for us. It's protected, it's structured, it grows inside a contract, and it gives you access. That part is already a win. But the bigger win is what it forces you to do. It forces you to start treating your financial life like a system, not just a series of random and oftentimes unfortunate spending decisions. Because here's what I noticed about myself when I got my first policy. I couldn't wait to take loans out. I was hyped. I wanted to use the system. I wanted to become my own banker. I'm talking about immediately. And that excitement, that can be good, but it can also make you rush. And rushing, that's expensive. Believe me. Now that I've said that, I want to make an important distinction here. Taking a policy loan to pay off high interest debt is not the same thing as taking a policy loan to go and invest. If you're taking a loan to wipe out credit card debt, personal loans, business loans, anything where you're guaranteed to send interest to a third-party lender, then you're not really taking on the same kind of risk that you take with an investment. I think we can agree on that, right? You see, in my mind, that's essentially a great return because you're guaranteeing something. You're guaranteeing that you will no longer send that interest to that outside debtor. And you're recapturing that cash flow by paying it back into your own system. You're swapping where the interest goes, and you're swapping the direction of the money. Not only that, but there's a great chance that you're leveraging your policy at something like, I don't know, 5%, while paying off something that's most likely between 10 and 30%. That means as long as you play good banker, your money is making a guaranteed 5 to 25% just by taking over the banking function from those debt repayments. So, if your first goal is to tackle debt, there is a real conversation to be had about using your policy early. Because that's not you gambling your capital, that's you restructuring your financial life and stopping that unnecessary leakage that's happening. And we all know most people have leaks, big ones. But on the flip side, if we're talking about legit investing, like sending money into something that has uncertainty, something that you could actually lose money on, something that requires real due diligence, that's a different conversation. And this is where the order of operations matters the most. One of the biggest problems that I see is people want to start investing with capital that they're not willing to lose. And the reason that they're not willing to lose it is because they don't have a cushion. I'm currently in we'll call it a cluster of an investment at the moment. Excuse my language, but don't mind me. There's about 200 other people that are in there, and I've heard some of them literally freak out because they've gotten greedy and over leveraged themselves by putting money in that they couldn't afford to lose in an investment that hasn't paid up, going on now 8 months. Now, I do have a sizable chunk of money in this investment. Yes. Would it absolutely suck if we didn't get any of it back? Of course it would. But what it wouldn't do is ruin us. What it wouldn't do is cause us to foreclose on our house. Does anyone know what the number one rule is when it comes to any investment? Anyone know? Don't invest more than you're willing to lose. You see, when it comes to this specific investment, we're in a crappy spot. Who wants to lose money? Honestly. But some of these folks are in a shitty spot because they are far over leveraged and they don't have margin. And margin is what keeps you from panicking. Margin is what keeps you from making emotional decisions. Margin is what stops you from having to unwind other potential investments to pull from at the worst possible time, i.e. your qualified plan in a down market. Which brings me to the topic of emergency funds. I want you to really let this sink in and think about it for a second. You're always about 3 to 6 months away from the next emergency, right? Something's going to happen. A car repair, a medical bill, a job transition, a family issue, a home repair, a surprise. The list goes on and on. Literally, stuff always happens. We both know it's not if, it's when. So the real question is not whether emergencies happen. The real question is, where are you storing the money that you'll use when that emergency happens? My answer is easy. I keep it in my policy because any cash that flows into my policy is doing far more for me than it would be just sitting in someone else's bank account where it's making them money. It has structure here. It has purpose here. It's inside a system that I control, and I can access it at any point if I need it. But here's the issue. Most people, they don't have an emergency fund. So if that's you, I need you to slam on the brakes, muchacho. Stop thinking about investing with your policy. Like, please, do me a favor. Take a step back. Take a deep breath. And let's just review your order of operations. If you don't have an emergency fund and you're trying to invest, you're not building wealth. You're building stress. Believe me, stress makes people quit. Stress breaks the system. Stress makes people tap into retirement accounts early and do dumb shit they otherwise wouldn't have done. I'm not telling you something that you don't know. You and I have both been there before. I'm certain of it. But that's why we focus so much on the basics. This is where Nelson Nash's number one rule in his book comes into play. Think long range. People get policies and they're excited and they want to do all the things. And I love the excitement. Again, trust me, that was me. But I wish I had a coach in my ear telling me, think long range, Shawn, because thinking long range is what protects you from short range decisions. Think about it. If you qualify for a policy, chances are you're probably healthy enough to be here for a little while, right? That means that you have time to build this thing the right way. I'm not talking about slowly, I'm talking about correctly. So here's how I think about it. You build an order of operations inside your policy. First, you capitalize a cushion. That cushion is your emergency fund, and you create a personal rule that you don't break. For example, let's say that you decide that your emergency fund is $5,000. This is just your personal situation. You build that $5,000 cushion inside your policy and you tell yourself, I will never loan my policy below this line unless it's a real emergency. That's your floor. That's your financial oxygen. You need that shit to stay alive. Now let's say that you capitalize $15,000 total in your policy over the first year. Great job. In that scenario, you've built your $5,000 emergency fund as the floor, and you've also built an additional $10,000 of usable capital above that floor. That additional capital can now be deployed to pay off debt, investing, other opportunities, whatever fits your investor DNA. But the key is you don't deploy it until you've built the system base. You didn't deploy until the discipline existed. You didn't deploy until you created margin. That's the whole point. You guys have got to believe me when I say this. The investments will always be there. Opportunities are not going anywhere. That's something that I had to learn. There will always be another deal, another idea, another thing that someone wants you to invest in. Why? Because you have the capital. But the people who win long term are the people who can wait. The people who win are the people who can say, I'm not investing because I'm excited. I'm investing because this checks all of my required boxes. I can tell you from personal experience, you guys, I've done a lot of investing with our policies. Some of it has gone really well, and some of it, obviously, not so well right now. I'm not here to hide that from you. Maybe if I wanted you to think that I'm something I'm not, or this is something that it's truly not, then that might be the case. But I want you to have clarity. You see, when I look back at the losses or the things that didn't go how I thought they would, the issue was never the policy. The issue was me. It was the excitement of having access to that capital. It was the feeling of power, like, I can finally deploy money quickly. I can finally create solid cash flow and start building wealth. Be careful of that feeling because from my experience, it can cause you to rush into opportunities that you haven't properly vetted yet. Now, yes, your policy is a fail-safe in a sense that your cash value continues to grow per the contract mechanics, even while you have that loan outstanding. But that doesn't mean losses don't matter. You still have to repay that loan at some point in some form because you borrowed against your system. The flexibility here is real and it's convenient, but it's not an excuse to be sloppy. The goal is not to lean on the flexibility. The goal is to invest with discipline so you don't need the flexibility to save you. If a scenario can be avoided by doing proper due diligence and only investing in things that you know, like, and trust, then you're going to save yourself a whole lot of heartache. You're also going to save yourself the headaches that come from tying up capital, chasing repayments, and realizing you didn't understand the deal, or finding out too late that the returns were just marketing. So when it comes down to it, let's get back to the question that started us all. When should you invest with your policy? Well, if you're a seasoned investor, meaning you already have a track record, you already understand your lane, you already know what you're going to invest in because it's what you've been doing before the policy, then, in my professional opinion, I'm fine with you using the policy sooner rather than later. Because the chances are You're not investing based on excitement, you're investing based on experience. The policy just becomes a better place to store capital and a smarter way to deploy it. But I don't have to convince you of that, you already know that. But on the flip side, if you're not a seasoned investor, then my advice is to focus on capitalizing your system for the first year. Build out that emergency fund. Start tackling your bad debt. I know you're excited about growing and multiplying your money, but I want you to slow down and I want you to build your order of operations first. Capitalize your system. Build your emergency fund. Create the habit of funding consistently. Clean up those obvious leaks. And then, once the policy has a cushion and you've proven to yourself that you can manage the system month after month, I think you've earned the right to deploy the capital with confidence. Listen, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I just want you to have success with your policy. I want you to stick with the strategy long enough for it to compound, not just financially, but behaviorally. This has changed the way that I look at money. At the end of the day, how you manage your system is completely up to you. I'm just offering advice from someone who's made mistakes, learned the hard way, created a better order of operations, and came out on the other side better than before. If you take anything from this episode, take this. Don't confuse access with readiness. Build and capitalize your base foundation. Think long range. And when the right investment shows up, one that fits your investor DNA, you'll have something most people don't have. Capital ready to move with terms that you control, backed by a system that you actually understand. So if you got some value out of this episode today, you guys, please leave a comment, a rating, a review, or subscribe on the channel, wherever it is that you're actually tuning in from. If you'd like to connect with what I would consider normal person like myself and discuss infinite banking, feel free to visit my website, legacylifeandretirement.com, and book yourself a call. Or click my calendar link in the description below. Last, but certainly not least, my book, From Regular to Rich, How One Decision Can Transform Your Financial Life Forever, is officially live. So if you're listening to this and you want to grab a copy, head on over to the launch page, FromRegularToRich.com, and go ahead and grab yourself one of those early bird discounted copies. And do me a favor, snap me a picture of you holding the book. And, once you take it, send it to me on social media. I'd really appreciate it. As always, guys, the information is free, but the knowledge is priceless. Peace, y'all. I'll catch you in the next one.